Hello. Um, what is not happening here? That's awesome. Well, I was going to play you a demo while we waited for people to log on, and didn't do that. So, yeah, so much for that idea. Hey, guys. It's Friday, November the 30th, and had a little bit of time this afternoon before I head out on the road, going back out on the weekend run with Jesse's girls. Have another event, this time Florida, somewhere in that state. So I had a little time this afternoon to go through my regular routine, which consists of changing strings, which I'm getting back in the habit of doing on a regular basis. And I think at this time I'm taking my 8 string, which I've taken out with this band before, and we do a lot of weddings, and this one's another wedding reception. So I think it's awesome that you can go to a wedding and see some crazy 8-string guitar player. I almost always have a 7-string with me anyway. So anyway, I've taken this one out with me, and I've not cleaned it up in a while. As a matter of fact, I've never properly polished the frets on this, and I got this this guitar brand new from Ibanez. I think that was late 2012, so I've had this thing for 6 years now, and it still kind of feels like a new guitar, even though it's starting to show some age. Like, you can see how much I use the volume knob where the paint's kind of coming off, and you can see the brass top on it and a little bit on the tone knob there. Certainly getting some little love chips in it and stuff like that. So anyway, this guitar has been super great and super stable and awesome. It has, this is one of the ones that has the KTS titanium necks. So it's got a titanium truss rod in there, and this thing came to me perfectly set up, and the neck has been perfectly straight, and I've never even adjusted it since I've had it. So all of the guitars that I own, this is the least maintenance setup guitar. All I've literally done on this is maybe change the pickup heights a little bit. I've changed strings a bazillion times, and maybe adjusted the pots, at least the knobs anyway, to make them fit right. It's a little bright in here. Let me change that a little bit. So yeah, that is. Yeah, that's a little better. So anywho, I haven't even put the regular DiMarzio pots that I would normally put in here. I think these are just still the original Japanese Ibanez pots. So definitely ready for a bit more maintenance, although nothing is wrong with this guitar. Like I said, it's been super stable. The least fussy guitar I think I own, the most fussy maybe being my Telecaster, which seems to be just standard for Teles from everybody I've talked to that's owned a lot of Teles. Their necks need constant looking at and stuff. But that's a great guitar too. So you take what you take when you get what you get. So I am going to take the strings off of here and do a quick cleanup, and I'm going to do that with this stuff called Gorgamite, which is kind of crazy. If any guitar player watching this, if you've not used this stuff before, I originally got some of this stuff, and I have that pack someplace. Adam Reaver over at FU Upgrades, or Floyd Rose Upgrades. I was buying some titanium blocks for the string retainer on my Ibanez Universe. Replaced all those out and put some stainless steel lock nut screws on that guitar. So just working with Adam on, slowly starting to adopt a few things on a few different guitars. And he was telling me about this Gorgamite stuff. And he's got a great video up on his YouTube channel about cleaning up some necks with it that are a lot fussier than this. Some guitars that were desperately in need of repair, where technically you would clean them, and then you would maybe steel wool the frets and then polish the frets from there and do all of that stuff. And this Gorgamite stuff is really cool. It's like a fretboard and fret cleaning cloth. Essentially, it's already treated. You just cut off a little square, and you literally just work your way down the fingerboard. Maybe let it sit on for a few minutes. I don't even know that I let it sit on very long, and then you get just some kind of a rag or a cloth or something, and then just go back and wipe all that stuff off, and the frets shine amazingly. It's not like, certainly not like steel wooling your frets, because steel wool will take some of the metal off, and this does not do that. It just takes whatever the grime and tarnish off is. So I've actually preferred that, and I find that I've done less treatments on the frets in between crown and level jobs and stuff like that, because that just polishes the frets really nicely without taking so much metal off, because it doesn't take any off. So you may find that over time you lose a little bit of sustain playing on nasty frets, and definitely bending and playing on really polished frets is one of those guilty pleasures that I certainly enjoy. So I highly recommend it. Hey, Charlie, what's going on, man? Charlie Korch, drumming monster extraordinaire. He and I have played together in many incarnations, and I believe he has played with me as I've played with this thing. So yeah, Gorgamite. This is the GHS brand that a friend of mine got for me as well. He was trying to turn me on to this because he had been out with the band Styx, and I believe it's the guitar tech for Styx that created this stuff. So he knows him, and he got some, and he got it for me. So that's really cool that I got a little close to a really cool product. It was actually made by a guy that somebody I know knows. So check that out. I'm not sure how available it is, but I do know that you can get it from fuupgrades.com. So check out Adam's page and his website, and he's got all kinds of stuff if you have Floyd's, and you can customize your guitars in all kinds of crazy ways. But you can get this stuff from him as well, and he's a super cool guy, and I highly recommend that you patronize his business, because he's a good dude and sells really good stuff. Can't speak highly enough about it. And then I get asked what kind of strings I use on my guitars, so I thought I would tell you. For this one in particular, because I don't know anybody that makes an 8-string set, I have been a Dean Markley artist probably going back to 2004, and I've used Blue Steels off and on for years before then, and many incarnations of different Dean Markley strings and Dean Markley products. So I was really excited when I signed on with them as an artist, and I keep up that relationship with them. I buy all my strings from them. So Blue Steels, they're my jam. This one is an actual 7-string set. This is the LT7 set, and this is 9 through 54, which I use on my other 7 strings as well. I like on that scale, it's a longer scale, 9s feel pretty good. I don't like to fight them too much. On a shorter scale, I use 10 to 52s, like on my Ibanez AS80 and on my Telecaster. And the good thing about that gauge of string too is whether I'm doing drop C or I'm doing standard tuning, that tension feels really good on those guitars. The tuning is stable. I feel like I can dig in a little bit without it going too far out of tune when I've got it tuned down. But also when it's tuned up to standard pitch, I don't feel like I'm a complete weakling when I go to stretch the strings and bend notes. So yeah, so I get these for my 7-string guitars, the 9 through 54s, and then because I have a low E string on this guitar for the 8th string, I have to order individual bass strings. So on my 8th string, I use a 70. I've tried a couple of other ones, and this one, the 70 feels the best on this baritone scale, because it's basically, that is basically a 4-string bass guitar E string, at least tuned to that pitch, and which is a longer scale and a much rounder string, much thicker gauge. So anything lighter than 70, I feel like it's really hard to play it in tune because it wants to go sharp on you constantly. And anything heavier than that feels weird to me, with the 54 being the very next string. So that gauge kind of needs to match for me to feel like, for my left hand, it feels right, as well as the tone is consistent. Too heavy a string, I think the tone gets a little bit weird. Lighter strings have a little bit of a different sound to them. And if you're going to go heavy, you should go all heavy, I think, to keep the tone consistent across the strings on the guitar. Also, I have noticed, because these are guitar tuners, tuning pegs, and I don't know what other 8-string guys do about this. I've not really talked to anybody. I know a bunch of cats who play like headless 8-string guitars, so they don't deal with this kind of tuning peg. But a 70, the thickness of this string, because it's not a floating bridge, but it is a locking bridge design. So you do have to clip the ball end off and put it in there and retain it like it is a floating bridge, like a edge or something like that. So just getting the string, if you use the winding with the string on it, like bass strings have, it's thick getting through the tuning peg itself. So I have to put through the skinniest part to basically to where it doesn't go anymore, then wrap it around and go from there. So a heavier string would be even more problematic because it would be even thicker there, even though it's got a taper at the end with the string winding. Hey, Mark Banaz, good to see you. And thank you for listening while you're at work, because working is important and I highly endorse working. I like working. Working is good. So yeah, that's what I do with my 8-string for all that. And I thought about setting up and actually cleaning and doing everything while I was doing the chat, but I felt like that might be a little bit boring to just watch a guy change his strings. So rather than do that, I figured I'd just hop on here and chat for a few minutes, and then this would be posted. What else are my regular rituals? I know I put up a post on my Instagram a while ago about a little bit about my depression and stuff, and how I had not been changing strings and doing regular guitar maintenance as a part of that. And I guess it's just looking for something to do differently in my regular routine to shake things up a bit, because I've been very adamant and obsessive about changing my strings on a regular basis. Like if I'm on tour playing every night or most every night, I try to put no more than 3 shows on a set of strings before I change them. I find that on the road, I don't want to deal with strings getting too stretched out, or usually, really the problem with strings in me is like I sweat them out from playing too hard and playing in hot clubs. So that's definitely a thing. I tend to like strings when they're a little bit older, like when I'm home just practicing. Sometimes I like older strings because they're not as brilliant, but once they get to a point where the metal is fatigued enough to where they won't play in tune very well with the other strings or even with themselves, then that's a problem. Like you want the intonation to be true across the neck. New strings are definitely better for that. And blue steels have been consistently really good, long-lasting strings if I do leave them on for weeks at a time. And with my depression and not changing strings as much as I usually do, like even when I'm home, I would change them once a week, once every couple of weeks or something, because I would still play locally around town, as I always do and still do. But I literally went months, I think, on a couple guitars, maybe over a year, without changing strings. I know I've got a couple of guitars that I play regularly sitting over in the rack that I've not changed the strings on maybe close to 2 years, which is pretty strange for me, but I'm also very religious about wiping down the strings after I'm done playing. So guitars getting dirty isn't necessarily a big problem with that. So anyway, I'm just trying to get back into some of my old routines and my old habits. I've got some recording projects coming up. I think I mentioned it on my last webcast about this level 5 project that I'm doing with David Mannion from Kansas. And it's progressive fusion instrumental stuff. And when Dave and I first started playing together, I was much more practiced and much more aggressive about my progressive chops. So we had done some demos on some things a while ago, long time ago. And my hands were a little bit better shape. And as I'm listening to stuff now, as we're getting them ready to record properly, a little daunting to go back and listen to the ideas that I was playing unashamedly back then. So I got a little bit of catch-up work to do to get my hands back in shape to even think about doing that stuff. So this is kind of the start of that process to get ready for that, as well as get back into work on my record, which is definitely, even in the demo process, I was having, it's not a shred record, but I was having a problem even playing the stuff that I had written. That was a bit of the depression too, is that I'd let my hands kind of slip and my discipline slip to a place where my ideas, which it's a good place to be when your ideas are ahead of what you're playing, is I would much rather write music that I'm interested in writing than just writing music that I'm capable of playing. I like the challenge of that. And it makes me feel like I'm a little more honest about writing music for music's sake and not just writing something that I can play just for guitar playing sake. So back to my routines. I have a hot mug of Lady Grey tea, which I enjoy this time of year. It's fairly cold here in North Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia right now. So having this, and bus call is in several hours. I think I'm meeting the bus at 1 a.m. So I have a little bit of time to do my laundry, get packed up, pack up my suit, have my guitar ready. So I will probably put some kind of Star Wars something on the television while I continue to work. I have watched every Star Wars movie, I don't know how many times now. Plus, the Clone Wars cartoon is on Netflix, so I watch that all the time. When I can't think of anything else to watch, that's a go-to, just to put that on. Like probably, I think every Friday or day of travel that I'm getting ready to go out of town, I probably watch at least a Star Wars movie or a few episodes of something before I go, whether I'm distracted and not paying attention to it or not. So yeah, hola, good to see you. So that's what I'm doing. If anybody, there's not a whole lot of people on, but if any guys had any questions about anything, I would take them. And if you're watching this later, this is the whole comment section thing. You know what to do. Ask me questions there, and I'll get back to them. And I know one of them is yes, I am going to do some more demonstration videos soon, very soon. May demonstrate how I make tea. So that's the thing. Let's see. Also, subscribe if you haven't subscribed to the channel, and share this around, because that definitely helps me. Like the video, that helps me with stuff. Keep the channel going, and it's all set up for ads and stuff on YouTube. So the more that stuff happens, the more visible my page is, and all of that good stuff keeps me working. So I appreciate that. Let's see what else is happening. Busy week next week. Mainly corporate gigs for me for the rest of the year. There's talk of another recording session with another writer that I did a super secret recording for a month or two ago. That's going to be happening. I did just appear in my partner Katie Martin. She's of Dose Martins. She has a band called Hey Alligator, and Tuesday night I went and saw her perform, and her Hey Alligator band was finishing up some shots for a music video that they've got coming out for a tune. So I guested in that video. So that's pretty cool. Hey, from all the way from Brazil. Very nice. Very nice. I have never been to Brazil. I've always wanted to go, and I hope I get to go sometime in the next few years. I am Portuguese, but my family comes from the Azores in the Atlantic Ocean. My family's not from Brazil, which is funny because I transferred schools when I was in high school, and that year there were two kids that had transferred to that same high school from Brazil, and they were very, very Portuguese and spoke very Portuguese. And even though I don't speak any Portuguese at all, we looked very similar, and I got confused for one of those kids all the time. It was fun. It was very fun. So yay for genetics. I guess they're pretty true even across oceans. I can't really think of anything else exciting that's going on. I should probably ask my buddy Mark. I know I probably need to replace the power steering pump in my Jeep. So I may bug you about finding one of those if I can't find one at a you pull it lot somewhere. That's exciting. It's been pouring out fluid. I keep dumping it in there, so I know I need to deal with that at some point. And tired of paying mechanics, so every once in a while I will turn a wrench, and I may need to do that pretty soon. So I may bug you about helping me with that. Let me see what else. If you've been following me, new to me, Marshall comes to me from a very special place. One of my best friends in this world passed away recently, and I I've acquired that. So it's sad, but it's also joyful that I have that. Oh, hey there, Jessica's on. Good to see you. So that's new. JSX, I've had that forever. I think that's from one of the first runs of when PV was making this Satriani amp. Of course, my custom 205 Glenwood enclosures, 212 cabinet that was made special for me. This one is nice because it's got a cool wiring on the back where you can run the whole thing at 16 ohms mono, or you can use both speakers, so it is split to stereo, and you don't have to bridge them. It bridges actually on the back panel, so you can do a little stereo rig with it as well, which is pretty cool. Let's see, what else can you see back there? Tiny orange amp, very cool. The little red box up top there is one of those radial direct boxes. And I'll tell you more about that another time. I've recorded with it in lieu of using a microphone on a cabinet. It sounds fantastic. And if you've been following me on some other stuff, I've got another one, the direct drive I put on my small pedal board that I actually take out with the band that I'm playing with this weekend, because we all use in-ear monitors. So going direct is twofold helpful. One, it helps keep what I hear in my ears very consistent every show. It always sounds the same. I don't have to worry about a odd microphone placement or knocking a microphone or anything like that. And eventually I may try the same thing with this radial DI, which goes between the head and the cabinet. So it's the JDX, I believe, or JD48. I can't remember. I've got so many radial things. The J48 is the regular active DI. That one is the JDX. I believe that is what that is. Anyway, I apologize to Radial Engineering for not remembering the name of that thing, but it sounds fantastic and it's built like a tank. So get them. It's very helpful for a lot of things. So anyway, that allows me to do that and still route my guitar signal to an amp if I want to monitor that way, or to a DAW or something else. And it sounds really good. Technology has come a long way. It's not like some of the older DI things that sounded a little buzzy and fizzy. These things sound pretty natural. And as a matter of fact, the last time I tried to record, when I first got this, I had already set up my rig, had everything mic'd up with I think it was a Sennheiser 421 on the cabinet, and me and the engineer were very happy with the guitar sound that we were getting. And we had set this up intending to just do a little experiment while we were tracking, just because I had just gotten it. I just wanted to see for a comparison what it sounded like in a direct comparison with something I was already happy with, the mic'd up sound, with a single mic. Multiple miking certainly adds another whole equation to the thing. You start adding ribbon mics. This basically sounds like an SM57 on a 412. So you start adding ribbon mics and other multiple dynamic mics and stuff, or room mics, and it doesn't do that. It sounds like a 57 direct on a speaker. So in that context, it was a good comparison, even though I wasn't using a 57, I was using a 421. But we started tracking, very happy with the guitar sound. And I don't know, 15 or 20 minutes into tracking, I said to the engineer, like, hey, we never ran a cable to that DI. We should probably do that so we can check it out. Probably don't even need to use it because the guitar sounds so good. But I would really like to have it just for comparison, for my own knowing. So we ran that, checked it out. And the first time we heard it, we had both sources up and we're like, wow, that sounds really good. Like, didn't have a problem with phase or anything like that. It just sounded really good and really full. And then we went back and forth and muted each to see which one we liked better. And of course, he was sitting at the console, and I was sitting by my amp. And as we were soloing and muting each to get a determination of which one we liked better, we ended up liking the DI better than the 421 in that particular case, which is a pretty strong endorsement for this to be in a proper studio and have a good comparison. And I was happy with the guitar sound. I'm not saying that my guitar was mic'd out poorly and I didn't like it and this thing sounded great. I'm saying we had a great guitar sound going, and for that session, we tracked both sources, and I believe the one that we used for everything was this. Certainly while we were monitoring in the control room, I only listened to that. So that was it was pretty cool to see that. So I'm looking forward to doing a bunch of stuff with that as I'm getting ready to get back into the, at least demoing some stuff and some proper recording into next year. So yeah, I think that's the only new stuff. If you see a bunch of wires hanging out back there, if you had any questions about that, that's what's up with that. So you guys are talking about T-shirts and Letterman jackets, which I don't do that. I work for a company that makes T-shirts and stuff called the Icebox. If you were into stuff like that, pretty big company here in Atlanta. We do a lot of stuff. Fun company to work for. Anywho, all right, I think I've jibber-jabbered probably about enough. So thank you guys for hanging out with Free for a little while. I hope you guys are good. And again, subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Share this if you feel inclined to share this, if you learn some stuff and all of that stuff. Comment with any questions or funny jokes or anecdotes or anything like that. Tell me about your 8-string and your string needs, and if you've tried Gorgamite, or if you're gonna buy it, and if you like Dean Markley strings, or what kind of strings you use. I'd be curious about what you guys are up to as well. So subscribe, like, share, eat your vegetables, take your vitamins, say your prayers if you're into that stuff. I advocate that. It's a very good thing. Hey, John, what's going on, man? So right here at the end of the video, I will let you guys go, and I'll check the comments later for any questions, and I will see you very, very soon. All right, y'all. Peace. Look at that. I'm really bad about pressing a button and then they give you another button asking if you actually want to do that. So I end up being that old guy looking at buttons like this at the very end of every video I do. So yay. All right. See you guys. No.